looks like could have as many as 7 new starters. I think at the very least 4. What's this spring been like for you, just to sort of learn the new personnel and what these guys can do?
It's been good. We get good participation from guys, so it gives us a chance to learn about them. They learn about us, and it kind of smooths the transition. So it's been good. We've got good work from the guys. I think the guys that we've added seem to be pretty smart football players, which helps. They're good communicators with the other veterans and the other guys in the room to try to kind of smooth it over. Hey, how do we do things here? How do we do it? Here's how, just to kind of, how it is. You got to try to meld different things. And so I think it's been pretty smooth that way.
How helpful was it that you had a lot of good attendance and most of these guys showed up for it?
It means a lot. I think when you get into situations like this, when you're in the unknown, how do you make it better is you got to be here. And those guys being here really helped because I get a chance to know them. The first time you see them and you get to know them is not under a stressful situation, because sometimes those things can go a little sideways. But this time, now I got a chance to build relationships with them, kind of know them. They know me, they know the other guys, and I think that's really important.
You guys in the secondary have already spoken to this, but when it comes to the versatility that you have now and the depth that you have now, it seems like you have a lot more interchangeable parts, but at the same time, that can also speak to a lot of communication from guys in different positions. You can talk about the intelligence of the group. How have you found that communication to be thus far with a lot of guys playing multiple positions and thinking kind of different concepts at the same time?
Yeah, that's still a work in progress, and that'll be, until we get into camp and really get going, it's going to be a work in progress. But the early returns, I would say, are good. I think I like the collective maturity and intelligence of the secondary, even with the young guys. And a lot of times what I look for in young guys is, what kind of questions are they asking? Are they asking any questions? Because sometimes young guys will kind of sit in the back and won't ask a question. I think our young guys have asked good questions. I think our new guys have asked good questions. And so I think that's all a really good thing. And so that allows us the flexibility to maybe move some guys around and do some different things with them. It'll all pan out as we get, in the season and as it goes. But right now it looks promising.
Could you speak specifically to Joey and guideposts or benchmarks that he would have to hit through camp or through preseason that you say he's ready? Or is there one epiphany moment where you say he's ready? When you bring in a young kid out of corner.
Yeah, I think, having had to play a young corner before, I think the things that I always look for was, obviously you look for the competitiveness, you look for all the good things that, he's out there and he's playing with confidence. But I always look for what's his understanding of his role. So does he understand why we're putting him in here in this particular role right now? If he understands that, then you move towards how's he actually playing it? Is he doing it well? Sometimes guys can understand it but really not play it well because then they won't play it fast. So you look at those two things, and then there's usually a moment where you just go, okay, I think this guy's ready. You're ready to throw him in and understand that you may take some lumps with him at some point, but that he'll grow through those lumps. And I've had that. My first year in the league, we drafted Marcus Trufant, and he ended up starting right off the bat. When I was in Arizona, my next stop, we drafted DRC, and it was the same thing. He started off the season as a third corner, and I think it was about week 6. It got to the point where you said, hey, listen, I think this guy's ready, even though we know there's going to be some growing pains, but he's ready. And like I said, he had a better understanding in 5 or 6 weeks of game action. He had a better understanding. He had a better feel for the NFL game, and it was time to let him go. And I don't know when Joey's time is going to be, but when it comes, I think we'll know.
Tia, you talked about the intelligence level of players, not just in your secondary, but I'm assuming too linebackers and D linemen. When you have so many new pieces coming into a defense, how big of a factor is that intelligence when you're trying to blend all of that together?
I think it always is. And we talk about it, and it's really, a lot of football things. You know, there's sometimes we always like to say, hey, there's those guys that are book smart, and then there's those guys that aren't, you know, street smart or whatever. You know, these guys, when you have the football intelligence and you can understand what we're trying to get done and be able to do that, I think it's important. And I think we do. I think we really have a really good group in that regards. You know, front to back, and it does. It makes it easier. It allows you to do some different things, some things that maybe will throw some other people off schedule, but won't throw us off schedule.
I don't think there's been a turnover in personnel with the defense since you've been here, but in your previous stops, have you faced something like this? And you know, what's the key to getting off to a fast start, even though there are
Yeah, I think I've been a part. I think I was somewhere in 2 years we had 9 new starters. We looked at the tape, or it might have been 1 year. We had 9 new starters on defense, and I think the thing that's key is you have guys that love football and they come in and they figure out how to work together. I don't think there's any magic formula, Ray. I think it's just a matter of guys coming in, getting to work, trying to understand each other, because at the end of the day, football's football. We can't make it any more than it is. And these guys have done it for a long time, and obviously most of them have done it at a pretty high level. And so I don't worry about that. I just worry about, you know, like for me, it's to get to know you, for them to get to know us, to get to know the other players. And I think once you get comfortable that way, that allows you to develop and grow as a player.
Sir, I don't know if somebody asked you, what does Aaron Curry bring for you guys?
A lot of young juice and a good young coach. I tell you, it's interesting, you know, because he's you know, he's coached outside, he's coached inside, kind of coached around, but really never really had his room. But when I watch him and I watch how he interacts with the guys, he's a lot of good energy. He's really wide-eyed. He's really, you know, he pushes those guys, and he has all the good stuff that I think a good young coach has. He'll develop as a coach as he goes, and his players will develop as well, because I think he's doing all the right things. So I really like what he brings to our room in terms of the juice, the energy, and it's good because we got a couple seasoned vets, and he's a good young addition.
Does it help that pretty much is all new guys to this system and a new coach as well?
Yeah, they're all kind of going in together. It is. They're all working together. They're kind of, you know, they'll have their growing pains together and all that stuff. But we think when they come out of it, we'll be pretty solid there.
When you guys decided to sign Holcomb and Landon, what was your thinking about where Robinson was coming out of last season at the inside linebacker position? And now that you've seen him back here for a couple weeks, maybe even further along the curve than what you thought at the time?
Well, I think we signed those guys because we knew we had 2 guys that could start, a little different skill set, you know, in that regard, where, you know, E is really a first and second down thumper type of guy. Cole may give you a little bit more flexibility to be able to play every down. And so we like that because we had those guys. We know they've started in the NFL. We know they're capable starters. And we thought that we saw enough from Mark Robb that we could bring him along. Still not, you know, still a work in progress, still probably not quite ready, but really making good strides. I think when you watch him, as I watch him, he's better in communication. He's better in pass coverage. He's better in some of the things where he was hurting on last year. But he's still got a way to go. He still has a ways to go, but he's really working on it. And you see the improvement. And so what you're hoping is, as he continues to improve, that maybe next year he's ready to really compete for that starting job.
How much has Pat Peterson's influence already started to rub off on not just the secondary, but the rest of your defense? And what kind of an influence is that when you have a guy of that caliber?
Yeah, I think, you know, Pat's thing is I think, you know, a lot of times when guys come to a new team, they want to, you know, hey, here's how I've done it here, here's how I do it, here's how you should do it. And I don't think that's Pat P's mindset. His mindset is, hey, how do we help this team here? How we do it here. And I think he's really been beneficial that way, you know, because he's shown that he wants to learn our way, but he also can bring some valuable information, some valuable insight from where his previous stops and how he's done it. So he's been really good for guys around here. I enjoy being around him.
Where were you when you had the 9 new starters? How long ago was that?
That would have been probably in the year in Seattle, 2005. It might have been the year we went to the Super Bowl. And so it was, I think we had, when I looked at it, I think we played the Rams in the third game, and I looked on the field because Lofa was a rookie, I think, and we had a bunch of new starters. I think it was 8 or 9, and so it was quite a few. It was we had quite a turnover.
Anything else? Good?
So,
All right.
all right, guys.
Everybody.
You mentioned experiencing some of the do and do nots. When you were experiencing those do nots, do you have the foresight to realize at that point, like, this could be helpful down the road? Or is that something that when you get down the road, you look back and say, oh, okay, that's why this is helpful?
Yeah, more of hindsight. More of walking into a facility and just being able to identify some behaviors that aren't going to allow players to be successful. Just, when you see it, you recognize it, and a good coach sees it, recognizes it, and you address it. So yeah, it's just been cool. It's been a really cool part of my journey it gives me a different, unique skill set, a different perspective that I can address multiple players on multiple angles, I guess.
Eric, pardon me if you've been asked this already, but TA was talking about intelligence level of your defense, and I know that you have a relatively new linebackers room coming together, but how much of a, I guess, important building block is that intelligence level to have this early on throughout minicamp?
I think it's critical in this phase of football that we really focus on the understanding of the scheme. Understanding why we're doing things the way we're doing it, and that's what we've been able to get done in this phase of ball. It's not just throwing stuff on the board and saying do this. It's putting stuff on the board and saying here's why we're doing it. And so that's been really critical into everybody's development as a player.
Really the only holdover from this unit last year is Mark. Mm-hmm. And, with Cole and E coming in new, you're coming in new, how do you all figure to learn together, and how much of a maybe different factor is that you're all kind of doing this together as new members of the Steelers? I think
that's the best part. That's the best part. I think the best part is that we're all on the same journey, learning this scheme and mastering it. And it's my responsibility for sure to put in more time than anybody's putting in. But to be able to share this journey with a new group of guys has been awesome. Because we're seeking answers together and we're getting answers together. So we feel like we're building something together instead of me just standing on top of them and telling them what to do.
Following up on that, Teryl was saying that Robinson's probably still a year away from being a starter, but if he's to be thrust into service via injury, how do you feel about how he's picking things up this year in year 2?
I'm excited for how he's picking things up. I think he's right on track for a year 2 player. I've seen a handful of year 2 players, and I think he's right on track in regards to where he is, in regards to his detail of his work, his focus on his note-taking, his trying to grasp the understanding of the full scheme. I think he's right on course, and I trust him.
Well, you kind of called the shot last year on Legal.
What do you say? I called the shot.
Well, I remember us talking to you. Somebody had said he had tweeted. You said, no, he's a guy who can play a lot of different plays.
There you go, yeah, because he's so athletic.
So fast forward for Benton this year.
I think Benton could be a nose tackle. He could be a defensive end because he's a big 6'3.5", 315-pound kid who can run, and the maturation process is going to take place to see if he can catch on to what we do, because I think he can be physical, because you've seen that in college, but when it transfer into pro ball, and that's the thing we're waiting on. So when we get to training camp, that's the first thing I'll be looking for.
TA was talking about the intelligence level on all 3 levels of your defense.
Right.
But when it comes to your defensive line room, how paramount is that for this group specifically that you have?
You want a real answer or a comedic answer?
Whatever you want to give.
You don't have to be smart to knock somebody out. There you go.
Karl, what's it mean to have a healthy Larry and just have him available in practices now?
I don't know. I mean, we got a good Larry O last year, and he didn't practice much. So hopefully, with him being able to practice and go, that's going to mean a lot to our team. And I think that's going to be the thing. He'll learn more of me because he couldn't practice last year. A lot of times he didn't practice till Friday because of that foot. And I appreciate Kevin and Mike T bringing him in and giving him a look-see when the other team didn't want him. And now we got him back, and I think a healthy Larry is going to be great for Pittsburgh.
What impact did he make for you guys last year?
Well, he gave us a veteran presence at that place that we didn't have a guy that was explosive enough. We had some guys who could help, and he let Larry O, he let Loudermilk mature and come along, and he kept Leal out of that position. That way we were able to play Leal outside when TJ got hurt. So I think that was the difference. Having him back now healthy is going to be great for us.
Is there more to unlock for him in terms of pass rush? I think he only had 2 sacks.
I think he was. You know, when we watched the game, there was a couple of 4 or 5 sacks that he missed that Cam or TJ took from him, but he was in the backfield. So hopefully he can cash the check and make some of those plays.
What is Leal for you guys?
Leal's a football player. He's a defensive lineman. He plays inside, he plays outside. He's a smart, athletic kid that you can play almost anywhere on the front of our defense. And I think that makes us more flexible, and it makes him special.
Did it take him time to kind of learn all those different things? Was the light coming on, if you will, for him this year?
I don't know. He was in there starting the second game of the season when TJ got hurt, and he was just going ever since. So I think he's matured and he's learning how to do things, and it's showing up on film. All right,
what's it like having him in now, Benton, 2 young guys in the room? You've been used to having a lot of veterans in there, but 2 young guys that you guys drafted high back-to-back years. How has that kind of changed the dynamic?
I think it's always good to have young blood in the room. You know, it keeps everybody else young, and it keeps me growing as a coach, you know, learning new things to try to get them on the field and do the things. Because sometimes as a coach, you get comfortable with veterans. You know what they're going to give you, but you get a guy like Leal who'll do this and who'll do that, and it keeps your eyes on film, and I think having young blood in the room is great.
Yoko, what can he bring? I mean, it's another depth piece, but how does he fit in?
I think he brings in competition at the nose tackle position, you know, between him and Montrevious and now the rookie. So you got some guys in that position that has some experience, but you got a young guy who's coming up. So we talked about it earlier, you know, nobody needs a nose tackle till you need to stop the run, you know, because you need an A-gap presence, and he's been doing that in this league for a while. So we're going to throw him in the mix and get after it.
Carl, I'm sorry, I'm sure you were asked earlier about Benton. Dancing Bear was
Right,
the nickname
right.
that he was given by Ogunjobi. What have you noticed from him, and what do you see from a wrestling background that helps him in that position?
Well, I haven't seen him dance. I've seen him run around and do some things, but I think the thing that he brings to the table with his wrestling background, he understands balance and body control, and he can do things, but we haven't put pads on. Everything's been shorts and jerseys. So when we get to training camp, you ask me that question, if you can hit somebody in the mouth and move the A-gap, then I'll be happy.
Elijah Riley fit differently in the defense this year?
I don't know if he fits differently. I think it's about building on his limited opportunities from last year. You go back to the Raiders game. I mean, he came in and played some valuable reps for us and did some things and showed that he can play in this league. So, I mean, he's an inside player with position flexibility, and so it's really not so much differently, but just trying to build on what he does well.
Grady, what can you learn about your guys in this setting?
That's an excellent question. What can I learn about my guys in this setting? I believe what we'll learn about ourselves is our ability to take it from the classroom to individual, then the team. You know, our ability to work with each other, our ability to implement good ideas that are viable answers, our ability to find answers. You know, it's just how well we work with each other, I think, is what we'll look to find.
You've got 2 young guys, and Corey and Joey Jr.
Right.
Just what do they bring with their size? It feels like corners recently have been getting bigger and bigger. What kind of advantages come with that?
Well, the thing they bring is youth. It's always great to be around youth. There's a certain level of excitement. There's a certain level of good, anxious feelings that come along with the newness. So it's great to have new energy, young energy in the room. Those guys are big. They're long. You know, you can have guys with great length, and they might not always be big. Those guys are big, have great size, great speed. You know, I joke with them. I say they are the big brothers. Guys like them, Keanu, Miles Killebrew. You know, if someone's bullying you, you go get your big brother, and those guys are the big brothers. So it's just great to have those guys around.
Mike T, I think, calls them avatar corners.
Yeah.
Is that a fitting description of them?
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Grady, is there such a thing as too much? The NFL being too much for kids? I can tell you know what I'm going to ask. Too much for rookies, you know, as starters?
It's what we do, right? It's what we do. It would be, which paper do you work, or
I'm with a website, DK Pittsburgh.
Okay, so would ESPN be too much for you, or Fox? Like, would you welcome? Like, you're a pro at what you do. Would you welcome that challenge? So I think if it's too much for a guy, you're probably in the wrong environment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everything is really practical when you look at it from that standpoint.
What kind of mentorship can Pat P help with those two young guys?
Yeah, he's seen a lot of plays. He's seen a lot of formations. He's seen a lot of splits, a lot of strange route combinations, and just sharing that information really with the entire room. I mean, this is year 13. We don't have a player in our room that has seen the number of plays that he's seen. So it's not just with the rookies. He has a lot of information to share with the room.
Your relationship with him goes back all the way to LSU, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, to be 100% transparent, I marvel at God's blessings every day I come to work, because I look at two guys that back in 2008, maybe, whenever it was, I coached him, that were in the infancy of their careers and had lofty goals, and to see those goals materialize, and we're both in the NFL now, it's just awesome, and it's a tremendous blessing, and I mean, I'm just very happy about spending this time with him.
Grady, you have a new safety and you have a new rotation. What do you feel about that? Those three with Neal and KZ in a different role with Mika?
Right. It's an awesome environment to be able to have guys that are versatile, but also guys that can specialize in things that complement each other. Keanu is a big body safety. Obviously, we lost a big body safety in Rail. So to bring in a big body safety, it just keeps that combination of complementary players going. And we're just excited to build packages and put everybody in the positions where they can excel.
Grady, coming out, Joey had some footwork things he had to work on, false steps. How do you take that out of his game, and how much is that going to help him, say, for a bigger corner, getting in and out of his transitions and all that stuff?
Right. It's about muscle memory, and it's not a unique situation. Every corner that was drafted probably has things that his position coach or his coordinator wants to change about his technique, and they have things that they like. I think the biggest thing is Joey has a lot of things that we like. And we were happy that he was available when it was time for us to pick him. But it's just muscle memory, doing those things over and over and just detailing them and creating a muscle memory that's his go-to footwork, when he's in that situation.
What type of advantages specifically or schematic abilities does a guy with that length and then having two 6'3" corners and Corey and Joey, what can that do for a defense?
Yeah, they cover a lot of ground. They occupy a lot of space. They're long on the deep ball, which was an issue for us early on, particularly early on in the year. When the ball is thrown down the field, long guys get even longer. So the quarterback has to throw the ball even further, if that makes sense. Whereas a guy my height, 5'10" or so, you may be able to throw the ball over his hand. You know what I mean? So a guy, imagine how much longer than me Joey is or Trice is right now. So that's a smaller window for the quarterback to fit the ball in. So we can get them to turn their heads and play the ball. They should help us alone in that deep ball phase of the game.